Hey friends, this is Ghost Hunter Dave with something a little different today. Recently, we were lucky enough to chat with comic superstar Stjepan Sejic, and I'm 70% confident that that's as close as I've come to pronouncing his name correctly. You may know him from his chart-topping graphic novel Harleen from DC Comics, as well as his insanely successful erotic love story, Sunstone. He is also currently juggling about 30 other projects, which he discusses with us on the show today. In typical Imperius Rex fashion, I'm joined by co-host Troy to the Max Extreme.
Today was rough, actually, if you don't mind me chiming in.
And Dinosaur Neil, the other one that sounds just like Troy to the Max Extreme.
Or all those ideas with all those erect penises where you're like, I don't know how to show it to anybody. All these editors hate all these erect penises.
Now, we don't normally do these podcast-style episodes, mainly because we don't normally have creators on the show that want to talk to us. However, we are going to be discussing some more of Stjepan and his equally talented wife, Linda's work later this month on our upcoming Valentine's Day special. So stay tuned for your normal Imperius Rex programming, costumes, drinking, all that. I also have timestamps below in the description so you can bounce around to various topics, but I assure you it's all pretty insightful stuff.
Please, I have done wonders with erect penises in Volumes of Mercy. I have done things to erect penises that people only dream doing to erect penises. One of them turns into a lightsaber, for fuck's sakes.
Let's get into it.
First and foremost, I should start by asking you to pronounce your name correctly for us so we don't just come off like assholes this whole time.
Oh, no worries.
I don't think we've got it right yet.
No worries. Of course, my name is Schnitzel Sidekick, and that is the right way to pronounce it. We agreed on that during my streams already, so at this point, like I'm just rolling with that one. Okay, just don't worry about it. If I taught people how to pronounce my name, how would I get my entertainment in life? You know.
I saw you posted on the Patreon that you're coming down off a fever, and I was like, oh shit! Like we asked him to speak to us at like 3 a.m. his time.
Listen.
So...
I had fever and drew like fucking 5 pages of comics in 4 days. I'm all right.
Oh, dang.
That's probably what caused the fever.
No. What caused the fever was a severe lack of cowbells, but you know, you don't think you're going to need them until you do, and then, well, there you are.
So is it 3 a.m. right now on your turn?
It is 3 a.m., yes, or as I would call it, like past noon-ish.
Okay, so what's a work day look like for you?
I love how you first started with normal. I work about 26 hours a day, and then game about 7 hours a day, and then sleep about 6 hours a day. The math checks out.
You've created something here that could make the world a better place. You've created.
Yes, and I'm keeping it to myself. Thank you. How the hell do you think I'm making 5 comic series and a novel? Like, just come on.
Oh, so
can't have everybody gain access to that technology.
So that was going to be one of my questions right off the bat: is how many books series are you currently working on at this given moment? Not literally right now, although I'm sure you're probably doing something right now while you're talking to us. But what's in the tank?
I'm casually picking my nose. Now, right now I'm working on 5 comic series and a novel, so technically 6 projects.
Dear Lord.
Troy chimes in. Yes, he still has 2 young kids right now, so I'm sure that amount of time just is hard to comprehend.
You know that time expansion machine I get, it gets positively ineffective when you put kids anywhere near it, so you know that's how it goes.
Oh yeah, they drain it. Actually, they're like little vampires.
Yeah, just reverse. All of a sudden, 24 hours days feels like 6 hours. You know,
right now I'm working on a one hour day. that's about as much time. Today was rough, actually, if you don't mind me chiming in.
By all means. This man is about to vent some stuff. Let
it out.
But yesterday, my son came down with double pink eye. So he's got 2 pink eyes, right? So we took him. Yeah, so we got him, took him to the doctor this morning to get eye drops. And then later, he had to go to the doctor again because he was pulling at his ears. He also has a double ear infection. And so we have to pump him so full of many drugs to just even him out. It's been completely awful.
The only thing kids love more than going to the doctor is getting things dropped in their eyes, I'm sure. So enjoy.
Just me just
I remember
cranking his eye open.
So since we've just been kind of BSing here, we should actually kind of kick this off first by thanking you for joining us on this, which, as it's probably very apparent, none of us are like actual comic book creators or anyone in the industry, just fans that, you know, made a goofy YouTube show. So to see you occasionally pop up on our chats or in our comments, it was very humbling, something that we never would have expected.
I am a literal nobody.
Out of our 20 viewers, one of them is you. So we're like, oh my God, we did it.
We've made it.
Yep.
You have set your goals low because I'm a literal nobody.
The best way to achieve those goals is to set them low. So we're on the right track. We want to be cognizant of your time as well. I know it's 3 a.m. there, as you've said. So
don't worry about that.
If you need to crash or just jump off and create another erotic series, you let us know if the mood strikes you.
Okay, I will have you know that only 2 out of my 5 current comics are erotic. The rest are safe for work.
All right. Well, I haven't got to those yet. I'm still on the erotic one.
Listen, it's just 40%. It's not even half.
By the end of this interview, we'll get you halfway. And then, speaking of that, it's been no secret that the current mission objective of Imperius Rex is to somehow coerce you into drawing the three of us into a background BDSM club scene. So, that is just the show goal at this point. And if we can end this interview a little closer to achieving that, then that's truly the goal that we've set out to achieve.
I keep living that dream. The only reason why I've practiced drawing so much is that I wouldn't need references, and the last thing I want to do is like draw from references, because that bores me.
You're missing out on 3 mediocre bods. I'm just saying.
Take us through, like, how did you first get into the comic creator game here? I imagine you grew up as an artist. What kind of kicked you off into that?
I kind of initially first, I wanted to be a paleontologist. Then I got hooked on Jurassic Park. Started really obsessively trying to make. I was modeling and sculpting a whole lot of like dinosaurs, and then I got hooked on Stan Winston Studios and movie studios. The people who actually make those like special effects and stuff. So for a while, that was my dream. Made a bunch of dinosaurs. Made a giant, actually full-sized predator model. There was my apartment was really crowded in high school. Okay, other people were chasing girls. I was chasing best place to buy silicones and shit. So I was an odd kid. Then I grew up, started reading a bunch of comics that were published at the time, and at some point it just kind of hit me to start trying to draw them. And I was basically raised on a lot of European comics, so I didn't really have a lot of experience with American superhero stuff until at some point they started publishing Spider-Man from the 90s. It was, I think, Absolute Carnage story arc, which at that time blew my mind because it was vastly different from anything that was published in Croatia at the time, which was predominantly Italian translated comics. And those were black and white stuff, So all of a sudden, here's comics in color. And then here's Ultimate Spider-Man, right? And like all of a sudden, I'm staring at this thing as like the options seem so much greater. And then for the first time ever, when I went to college, I gained access to the internet. So I started Googling what's happening in comics. And, I'm like, oh, wow, 90s just blew past me. It was like the year 2000. I just got into comics. I'm learning about Mark Silvestri, Michael Turner. I'm learning about Alex Ross. So naturally, I'm like, I'm gonna kind of take those tiles and I'm gonna smush them together. I'm gonna make something out of that. I'm gonna abandon everything that I was doing on my own. So I spent about a decade trying to figure that shit out. Got my foot into the industry by just being just super hyper productive with my own fan arts and stuff. And once I got in, it was just kind of my monthly grind until one day I crashed and burned, decided I was going to quit comics, and instead started Sunstone. And here we are.
So was that just like a big palate cleanse there? Is that what kind of moved you on from, because you did, was it Witchblade for quite a while before Sunstone?
I did Witchblade for over 50 issues. Then Witchblade adjacent titles, Top Cow events at the time. But the problem with that was, like I said, when I got into comics, American comics, right, I kind of I took other people's styles and kind of meshed them together to try and make something of my own, because my idea was these people know how it's supposed to be done. Of course, whatever I'm doing is wrong, whatever they're doing is right. And the thing with style is a style is an artistic handwriting. It's a series of mistakes that look good, right? And I kind of took other people's handwritings, and it's like when you're trying to write with another person's handwriting, you do it for long enough and your hands start to hurt. Like something is off there because that's not you. And for about 50 plus issues of Witchblade, like you could see the quality deteriorating because I was still trying to find the way out of it, trying to find what to do with that style, right? And it just wasn't clicking. And then one day I was just coming off the run of Tom Judge, the Rapture stuff. I forgot what the name of the comic was, and like I was literally completely burned out. I turned to Linda. I'm like, I'm done. Like I'll probably accept some video game gigs that, like, my inboxes were full with job offers because people knew that I was very fast, very productive, and I had a sense of design, right? But my passion for comics was dead. And so I'm like, I'll figure something out, right? And meanwhile, I'm gonna just kind of screw around. I'm gonna open a new incognito account on DeviantArt, and I'm gonna draw stuff about the stuff that I knew quite a lot about. Because one of the earliest things, just before I got into comics, was I was offered a gig to make for some European company at the time, like a fetishistic porn comic, right? For me, back then, like we were absolutely dirt poor. Like we came from absolutely nothing, right? And all of a sudden, like they were actually throwing serious money at me to make a comic, and I'm like, I don't care what it is. I was like, fuck, they're gonna pay me to make a comic, right? So I started exploring, I started researching, I started drawing, I started doing layouts, and like I was on fire back then. And then, all of a sudden, just as I was finishing up my kind of package to send to them to just kind of, okay, so is this okay for you? Because they needed some samples. At that point, I get contacted by Top Cow. They're like, would you do some colors for us over Tyler Kirkham for this Darkest Wolverine crossover? Like, would I ever? So I did that. Then I sent my editor at the time some samples. So she's like, wait, you can actually draw? I'm like, yeah. Then, it started with Top Cow. But the point was, back when I was doing those porn pages, like the creative drive was insane, right? Because for the first time I had a chance, So I turned to Linda. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do some fetishy stuff. I'm gonna just draw because, I was used to it. Superheroes comics are so inherently fetishistic. It's not even funny. Like,
yeah.
Jesus Christ. it's a goddamn latex factory there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do some funnies about that. I'm gonna do some sexy stuff. I'm gonna do some funny stuff. I'm gonna do some jokes about BDSM because we knew a little something about it. But first, when I made the count, I'm like, okay, let's see what I can show, for mature content. I checked the terms and conditions. Turns out the scariest thing you can show online, including art, is an erect penis. This is something I've also learned about publishing. So that was forbidden. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna draw two girls. Like there was no, there was absolutely no. Like I had no idea, right? My second drawing was these two girls. I did not know. They were nobody. Like this wasn't an idea for anything, right? I just like, this one has black hair. This one has red hair. It looks nice because black and red are so, synonymous with BDSM fetish gear. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm gonna draw a few more pictures of them. I drew a few pictures of them. I just saw the account start from nothing and started immediately rising in popularity. I'm like, there's that fun, like when you're starting a new RPG, right? And you're like level 1 and you see it rising, as you're progressing. And all of a sudden, I'm like making little jokes with these characters. These characters started speaking. And then I'm like, shit, how did these two even meet? And then I made that strip. And past that point, like it was done. Like it was shit. Now I actually have to write this thing. Now I actually have to research stuff. Then I went into researching stuff, and the more I got into it, like you think it's like, okay, there's a certain depth to the research of this stuff, and I don't mean just BDSM. Like I mean like just relationships. I mean like like just everything, you know. And I started researching. I started talking to people. I started listening to people, fucking hours upon hours. You just like you start realizing, holy shit! And the more you listen, you're like, this. I'm not gonna have enough books to write all of this. Like, so you know, I ended up making several books at the same time. So that's fine. That's really what ended up properly supercharging my career in the end, was making that, because with Sunstone, I got back to my own approach of doing things, and I opened myself up to exploring character acting, which then transferred to everything that I was doing. And all of a sudden, you know, I kind of became the expressive characters guy, the storytelling guy, you know, and here I am now.
Oh man, there's so many things out of that I want to comment on, starting with this life-size predator that exists somewhere out in the world.
There's a photo of it, you know, on my DeviantArt.
Oh, is there? Oh
yeah.
Man, I gotta track that down.
I'll show you later.
I mean, yeah, first off, it's amazing to me that you were so into like the model making and the sculpting and prosthetics, that was a career path. And then just like on a dime, you decided like, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to be an excellent comic book artist too. And within,
I didn't start off as excellent. I just saw what people were doing.
Yeah, you said it in about 10 years time, which I mean, a lot of these comic artists of your age and your caliber, I imagine, have been doing it their entire life. So that is quite a
Here's the thing though. I don't quite operate. I never quite operated in normal hours, as in I would sit down and draw about 10 to 12 hours a day, every year. Like it wasn't healthy. Okay, I'm not saying my choices in life were the healthiest, but they got shit done.
Yeah.
So did you have a DeviantArt page? Is that what got you noticed? Your original DeviantArt page?
Yeah, my original Nebezial DeviantArt page was the one that got me noticed for Topco, but later on, the one that kept driving everything was the Shinies account, the Sunstone and other comics account.
Your dark account.
Yes, my hidden account. The biggest fun with that account was just waiting how long it would take people to put two and two together. And then some started noticing that it's the same artist, right? And I'm like, I'm gonna have fun with this. So they asked me if, you know, if it's the same thing, and I just kind of find every way to answer the question without saying no. So technically, I'm not saying no, and I'm just like, let's see if anybody notices. And one person noticed at one point and actually DM'd me about it. Like, yes, finally.
Also, the way that you put it, like, you not drawing in your own handwriting, I've never heard it explained like that before, and that is like the best way I've ever heard it ever, is drawing in somebody else's style and it is not your handwriting, so it just makes
trust me, it's the 15 years of doing it that really makes it sink in for you. You know, you kind of find words to describe it at that point.
Yeah, that is an amazing way to put it. That's awesome. Because it took me a long time to figure out like what my drawing style was. Because like you see in the 90s, Todd McFarlane's like the hottest shit. All those image guys have like a similar, really sketchy, thin line style. I'm like, man, they're killing it. I want to draw like that. And then you're like,
that was me. Same thing,
sucks.
You
know. When you really got into honing your craft on the illustration, did you jump right into drawing digitally, or were you a paper and pencil guy first?
So when I started, I was predominantly a sculptor, a paper and pencil artist. I was a muralist. I painted churches. I did literally whatever was available. I tried it because I spent my entire high school through college days constantly trying to find the thing that I felt best about, you know.
How was that transition then, going from paper and pencil to a digital medium, which I imagine you didn't have a ton of experience with at that point?
Oh, I had no experience. But the thing is, these programs, the art programs, standard ones, are generally self-explanatory. And the first rule of them is you can't be afraid to push a button and see what it does, right? For a while, like, you know, for a few weeks, I was messing. You know the phrase "fuck around and find out." That was that was my method of learning. I was self-taught because back in the day, tutorials were just far and few in between. So you were kind of left on your own to your own devices, right? So I started messing around with Photoshop. Big advantage of Photoshop, right? I lived in Croatia, so getting proper papers, colors, everything was a nightmare. So I got my hands on a copy of Photoshop, which immediately technically puts you on an equal standing ground with everybody else. Now, the main thing back then was the problem with digital was you couldn't really easily make it behave like paints. One of the big problems in the early days was how to blend colors, right? And like there was this whole site CG Talk at the time where we were all kind of doing, we were basically kind of sharing tutorials, sharing works, all of this stuff. And it was during my days there where I stumbled completely accidentally. I was trying to make something in Photoshop because these programs, right, they're kind of modular in their own way. So you can make a brush do a thing that wasn't technically supposed to. So I was trying to make a brush to kind of paint like waterfalls and stuff, the foam. And I tried to apply it on a smudge tool, right? And I realized that cracked the code and made it blend colors properly. Like in the same way as you would with oil color, like with paint, like it would work perfectly. So I fiddled with it for a while, and back then, like it was revolutionary. I made a blending brush, which was a function that Photoshop didn't have. And from there on, I kind of molded everything around my own weird approaches to this. Like my whole experience with digital was people telling me, you're not supposed to use that, to holy fuck, how did you use that? But yeah, that was the cool thing about those days was like you kind of had to do it on your own because there was nobody else who was quite there to show you. Nowadays, like digital work is so omnipresent that you can just go on YouTube. Like this is what I always tell people who ask me, like, hey, can you show me? I'm like, I can show you, but there's actual people who are really good at teaching. Nowadays, it's so much more convenient. People can reach high levels of quality much faster. Back in the day, you were kind of struggling with everything.
Oh yeah, you'd like go on to like a file share program and download a torrent of Photoshop that wasn't corrupted or whatever, and then try to figure it out yourself.
We totally never did that.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah,
never. What are you talking about?
But yeah, did you start out just using like a mouse?
I was, I think, first year of college, and I told my dad I wanted to learn digital stuff, right? So he took out a loan and bought me my first computer. And my late uncle, he was big in computers. He actually taught me everything. So he actually got me a small. The brand was called Genius, right? It was a tablet, but it was like really small, but it had all the functionality of like the biggest wake-up tablet. Like it still worked perfectly. So I started just immediately working with that. And it was like those tablets were super cheap, like even by Croatian standards, which means in America they would have been like 30% lower price. So I'm like, why are people still using mice? You don't need, like, because back at the time Wacom was super expensive compared to that.
When you mentioned a very small tablet, I just want to picture you drawing on like a post-it note or something. It's still making this just amazing revolutionary Photoshop.
Oh yeah, no, like that tablet was about the size of 3 smartphones.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it wasn't large. And by the way, about 20% or 30% of its size was like bleed. The stuff that you can draw on.
Do you find yourself still coming up with like little workarounds and new innovative ways of drawing like you did earlier? You said you kind of cracked the code on blending.
Oh yeah. No, but here's the thing. At this point, it's very easy. At this point, you kind of know what you're working in, so it's very easy to just break the system, right? Like there's stuff like it's always hilarious when I'm drawing something that involves water, slime, blood, whatever, and I do my little trick with bevel and emboss or like combine it with brushes to create metal stuff. and like it blows people's minds. I'm like, trust me, at this point, like this is not even like, this is super easy at this point. Like back in the day, this required computing power that you didn't have. Now it's just like I can just do anything. It doesn't matter.
What was the decision on your part on something like Sunstone, and I guess really just about everything that I've seen of your work, you kind of go back and forth between the sketchier, simpler, more fluid line work, and then like the really detailed hero images. And I imagine it's, really just to show off on some of those glorious full-page spreads.
It's just sometimes you're like, you're drawing a thing, and it's just like, I kind of really just want to polish this one.
Yeah.
Like I can. Like, here's the thing. Technically, I could make every panel photorealistic if I wanted to. I've done that stuff when I was doing Ravine consistently, and it's not even hard, especially with my techniques. It's just the problem with photorealism is it robs the immediacy, it robs the energy, it overly captures the moment to the point where the moment feels chained, right? You don't have that little like one of the things I love in my comics. Like, I'm not really somebody who loves hero's own work, but one of the things I really do love is the weird mistakes that happen when you're drawing excessive expressions and gestures, where things kind of start disassembling the anatomy at points, but the energy of it just completely sells it. Sometimes somebody is so shocked that one of their eyes just fucking starts walking off to the side, and like they're turning into a hammerhead shark or something. Like Linda and I had a good laugh about it yesterday when somebody posted like a collage of some of the derp faces that I was making, and I'm like, look, honey, Lisa's eyes are both just she's so in the moment that her eyes are just floating to the sides of her head. She's turning into a hammerhead shark, because. But like, it is a mistake, but it is a mistake that communicates the energy of the moment, right? And that this comes back to that point where I said that style is a bunch of mistakes that actually look good to us, and like that's the beauty of drawing something in a looser, more stylistic way over the strictly rooted and strictly correct anatomical way. It's technically impressive. Like, one of the people whose art I admired the most was Alex Ross. But I will always sooner read a Mirka Andolfo book than Alex Ross drawn book, because I enjoy the energy.
Yeah. I would say, Neil, you probably have the exact same comment that I have. Alex Ross does something amazing to look at, but it's like a still life,
Yes.
There's no energy to it.
I think they're just borderline exhausting to look at. Like, if you read like Alex Ross book, like a full cover to cover, you're like, that was too much at one time, kind of. It's too real.
He's an amazing cover artist, and I'm glad he found his niche doing that. But
I'm actually very curious about his new Fantastic Four thing, because he's doing a more stylistic approach to color. Like, his skill at anatomy and everything else is there, but he's doing a more expressive approach to color, where he's not doing the over rendering of everything, but he's just kind of doing more of a kind of a four-tone color thing, like the old comics. And I'm very curious to see how that turns out.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know he was doing that.
Yeah, it was recently announced. I was actually really impressed when I saw the sample of it.
You mentioning Fantastic Four there just kind of made me want to go off track a bit. So you've done plenty of your own work. You've done a lot of indie work for like Top Cow. Are there any big properties like from the big two, or maybe like some of the big Image mainstays like Invincible or something that you would love to, take a stab at or get your hands on?
Not even a little bit.
Really? So,
Nice.
So what drew you to Harleen then?
I had a very strong idea for an entire story arc of comics. Harleen was supposed to be a 9-volume thing, not just the one that you see here. There's supposed to be like 3 of those books. I was gonna tell a very Godfather-like story. It's kind of like in Godfather, where you have Michael Corleone, right? At first, he doesn't want to, be a part of his father's, business and everything, but he gets pulled into it out of love. And that's kind of Harleen, in the first arc, she gets pulled into it out of love. The second one, though, is him doing things out of choice. Well, the second part of Harleen would be her doing things out of her choice, because while the ending of Harleen, what happens is technically an accident. She didn't want to kill the guy. In the second book, she was actually going to commit proper murder out of choice. In fact, there was going to be a whole really impactful thing. And also one of the big things in the second arc would be, how do you take, a psychiatrist and turn him into Harley Quinn? Well, I had a really fucking good answer to that, like actually a convincing one. So that was going to be very fun because I was going to basically cover the physical strain of something like that. I mean, for fuck's sakes, like she's most of her exercise was going to and from work,
Right.
But what I was gonna do was really gonna be good. But the whole thing kind of fell apart. And then the third arc was gonna be there, whereas the whole fallout happens. Everything goes to shit because, well, turns out can't really have a happy future with the Joker. So. All you can do is have a really fucking bad breakup, and it was gonna be absolutely fucking glorious. But again, sometimes things don't pan out, and I'm happier for it because, well, I have stuff to do.
Yeah. Definitely interesting to hear what could have been on something like that, which as someone who personally is not the biggest Harley Quinn fan, I loved your take on it.
What I did with Harleen was, it was supposed to lay the foundation for this series of books, where basically to be first volume of Harleen, then volume of Isley, then Harleen volume 2, Selena, and then Harleen volume 3, and then Sirens. So that was the big plan.
Wow.
But the things kind of fell apart on the Isley level, and then
yeah, well, it's better to get out and move on if your heart's not in it. But man, my heart was in it, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of hard to compare how much your heart's into something that somebody else owns and something that you own.
Yeah.
When you also realize that what you're doing of your own is earning you 3 times as much as for higher things. Like, it's literally like I have become so successful with my creator-owned stuff that I have priced myself out of any work for hire stuff. Like, when I do something at this point, it's literally just me going like, because I like it so much.
Right.
Well, that's the dream right there. That's awesome.
Exactly. I really I really can't complain whatsoever. Like this, I'm working on 5 of my books. Every single one of them I can't wait to get to next month. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I am literally, my brain is like, okay, so tomorrow, Queen and the Woodbourne. Oh my God, this whole thing with Barbaroga is going to be hilarious. Like, this is my brain, right?
How was working with like DC compared to like another indie publisher? The process and how things get done.
Same. It's the same process everywhere.
Okay.
Unless it's creator-owned stuff, But like I said, DC, you get your script, you make your layout, send it to the editor, get your approvals.
I just didn't know if it was like a stricter editing process.
Oh God!
Like, hey, you have to change that.
No. In fact, some of my editors at DC were editors that I used to have at Top Cow. So it's I'm like, I used to. I'm in Top Cow. I'm like, hey, Rob, how you doing? Here's my layouts. I go to DC to work on what's it called, Justice League Odyssey. Oh, hey, Rob, how you doing, buddy? I'm like, wow, this feels familiar. Let's go.
Well, that's good to hear. That I figured, kind of the departure from DC might have had something to do with just like a stricter editorial.
No, absolutely not. Listen, DC was more than perfect to me. Like, there's absolutely no problem, but it's literally like they would have to pay me 3 times as much to make the books, right? Like, it's like I was the first one to tell them, listen, it's not worth, here's the thing, Harleen, a bestseller. It really is. Like, there's no sugarcoating that. Like, it was a bestseller on the comic book store levels. It is a consistent bestseller on Amazon. It's been ever since publication. The hardcover has been among the top 20 superhero books. Like, the thing sells, right? But if you're gonna pay me 3 times as much, you're gonna have to have a bestseller of a bestseller. Like, I'm gonna have to tell Alan Moore to sit the fuck down. And you know what?
Can we
I'm
be
confident. I'm not that confident.
Yeah, I want to see that happen, and then he casts like a fucking spell on you or some shit. So you've got like 5 of your own projects, and you said you're writing a novel as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
I wasn't busy enough.
Just out of curiosity, do you like writing more than artistry, or vice versa, or is it just kind of a different
thing in my head?
Awesome.
Like I see things, I see strings of events, and I'm constantly running simulations of conversations of characters on a level where I can't fall asleep without radio running. It's not healthy, but it is fine. The voices are okay. The voices are friends.
Well, as long as they're friendly.
How do you juggle between multiple projects all at once? You're doing 5. Do you do like a week on one, a week on the other, or are they all competing?
Technically, it's about 2 weeks per one. Like every 2 weeks, I do about 10 pages of a comic, which leaves me about 4 days off. So like it takes me about 10 days to make 10 to 15 pages of comic, depending on how on fire I am that week. Then I have a few days off. Then I do the other update. So basically every month on my Patreon, I drop 2 updates, which will vary from 8 pages per update to 15, 19 pages, depending on how crazy I get. So yeah, that's basically it.
Wow. Yeah, I just saw Sunstone Mercy Volume 8 dropped the first 15 pages.
Yep, and I just dropped Death Vigil today. Wow, Death Vigil has almost reached 90 pages, the second volume, which is nice.
And then you just keep churning them up until you're like, okay, this is that story. Put it out in trade paperback, and then move on to the next.
Yep.
Do you have a full script that you work off of, or do you just kind of go hand in hand?
I have outlines because I am very open to my own better ideas. So outline keeps me on general track. My own better ideas keep me on moment to moment trajectory.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so you kind of get your general direction from your outline. It's your compass, right? But the way you're gonna navigate is your day-to-day ideas.
How far ahead do you kind of know where you're gonna go?
For my stories, I always know where they're going. One of my most important things is I need to know the ending. The ending needs to serve the purpose. The ending needs to all the teams in the story. They need to triumphantly coalesce in that ending. Everything needs to sit in place, and that ending needs to be the reward to my readers for being around. So it's extremely important for me to stick that landing, right? So I always have that. I have major points along the path. So it's basically bus stations for the story, right? Like this is an important key point. This is an important key point. This is an important key point, and this leads us to the end. And then everything in between, I leave to my monthly, sit down for a few hours, think about it, write,
What does your studio look like? Like, where do you, if you go in, you're working 24 hours a day, twice on Sundays, then what is your creative space? What do you surround yourself with?
Oh boy, I'm sorry. I just had a laughing fit because of that one. What, Linda? He just asked me what my studio looks like, my creative space. I am put in the shame corner of a small goddamn room here, okay? I have a recliner chair and a monitor. What the fuck do you mean studio? Yeah, Linda's got the good table.
Oh, man. Get Linda on here. I was going to ask, who do you collaborate with on a normal basis? And I've heard, obviously, it's your wife and partner.
Well, with
Linda.
with Linda, basically, Linda and I have a very simple system where we make our comics and we're each other's basically beta readers. Not necessarily proofreaders. We don't really care that much about the grammar and everything because we're that's why we got the editors.
Yeah.
But the thing is, both of us are very, very hard to please when it comes to stories. So if we pass each other's check, we should be fine, right? And that's the thing. Like one of the major things that we help each other is deciding whether or not the story reads well, whether or not it flows well, because that's one of the crucial elements to the storytelling, right? You kind of need to feel that urge to flip those pages and not bounce back, constantly like, wait, what did I just read, And that's what we do for each other on the storytelling level, Beyond that, we just kind of sit next to each other, meme at each other, and just make stupid jokes and
do our own stories. The dream.
Oh yeah.
the dialogue that I've read in Sunstone and Fine Print and Harleen is so natural. I know you come off as this this guy that just makes the greatest erotic artwork, but you're such a warm and fuzzy guy at heart. It has to be, because these are like, they're so romantic.
Listen, I'm just a dumbass, but this is the heart and soul of writing convincing human. You have to understand that everybody's a bit of a dumbass. Like, we're all fuck-ups, right? And this is what I put on paper. I put on paper people who are just idiots, right? Like at some on some level, we're all idiots. We're all, kind of trying to figure out life in one way or another. And we have our moments of coolness, and those are great. When we're doing a thing we're confident that in an environment where we're confident in. Like, all of a sudden, if somebody saw us, they were like, "Oh my God, they're so above it all," But just put us anywhere out of our comfort zone, we're just like, "Oh my God, what the fuck am I doing?" And like, that's my writing in general. I let my characters have the cool moments, but I never forget to remind you that these are dumbasses just like anybody else.
I think that's it. That's the key. You can identify with all of them. You can see yourselves in all those dumbass moments.
Yes.
Sunstone is going to be in volume 8. Do you have any anticipated release date on that one, or is that still too far off?
Of course. It's coming out on the 22nd when it's done.
Well, that's soon. With your work schedule, that could be in 3 weeks from now.
I wouldn't hold my breath for that one.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did you say at one point that the way that you're projecting that particular series to go, it's going to be something like, is it in the teens or the 20s on the volumes?
20 volumes. 20 volumes.
Wow.
First 5 volumes are the Sunstone arc. Then second 9 volumes are Mercy arc. Mercy arc is longer because Mercy arc expands the cast and also involves a lot of layered multi-tier storytelling, which is going to be really fun to do. And then the last 5 volumes are Jasper arc, and then the volume 20 is a very special volume that's kind of wrapping things up, kind of a happy ending volume, which predominantly revolves around Ali and Lisa's wedding.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, so we got a tease of that, I think, at the end of volume 5, right?
Oh yeah.
So it seems like there's plenty of room in there for a couple of guys to maybe forget a safe word and then die in an S&M accident. Just saying.
The silence means he's considering it. Oh, I did notice it. I think in volume 5, in some of your back matter, you mentioned you're introducing a character named James Hughes, who's like a cross-dresser. And if you're familiar with the show, that's something that one of us does here every once in a while.
I did not know this.
I'm excited. I'm excited to meet that character, see where that goes.
That I left that for the 3rd arc because it's gonna listen. I take great pleasure in making my audiences cry. This arc is going to make my audiences absolutely fucking blubber. Like, it's gonna be.
Oh man,
it's gonna be glorious.
This is the Jasper arc, or is this the Mercy
Jasper.
arc? Okay, Jasper. So we got a ways.
James starts in volume 8. James is going to be in volume 8 and 9. After that, comes back in volume before Jasper, because that's when Marion and James enter the story before the end of the Mercy story arc. Mm-hmm. There's going to be massive payoff there. And then comes the Jasper arc, which is about Marion and James and how Marion went from completely getting absolutely hooked on the whole submissiveness thing, which is essentially getting addicted to dopamine. Really, it's consistently chasing dopamine high, getting hooked on it, and then now she kind of has to flip the switch, but the problem is when people say go cold turkey, it rarely ever fucking works. So she has this psychiatrist, and she basically tells her, listen, I'm not even going to suggest you do that. What you need to do is you need to reclaim your dom space, because this one, she's actually had experience, right? So she's like, you've been living so much in your subspace that you've habitually let somebody take control over you. You've willingly given control. Now you have to go and reclaim your control, find yourself a partner, but you need to dominate, right? And it's going to be a story in which she finds her dom space and James finds out a lot of things about James.
Oh man, the wheels are always turning up there. I just want to know how much more of this you got cooking up. How many other characters you're introducing? All these payoffs.
Oh my God! The sheer amount of cast increase in Mercy arc is gonna be glorious, because when Mercy starts, especially with Volume 9, Volume 9 is where things truly explode, because Volume 9 is Alan starts his career with BDSM stuff, right? And he basically partners up to do stuff for the Crimson Club, which then enables me to expand the cast of Kinksters, and at the same time, introduces Marion, gets Allie into the club, which is that's gonna be just a whole lot of hilarity.
As I was recently reading Sunstone, you got me thinking, and I start Googling BDSM clubs in our area. Let me tell you, they don't look like they do in Sunstone.
Oh no, they do. It's just not all of them. It's like
I can tell you, in the Midwest, they would not.
No, they would not.
It's basically like saying I googled a club, right? A word club, and it doesn't look like the club that I saw in this thing. It's like, yeah, they kind of go with different teams. Trust me. In Europe, there's a few of them, and there's a bunch of them. Like in America also. Like I've had actually some people who are my friends from America, who also do these clubs in BDSM clubs in California and everywhere. So they've sent me photos, because I'm like, I want to kind of see what it's like there. So I've been getting photos from a lot of these clubs. So it's like Crimson is a club with a team, right? Crimson is basically a kind of a abandoned theater that they kind of bought and remodeled into a club. So they have a nice performance space, they have back rooms, and they have a VIP space that they basically remodel on the top floor. So there's going to be you're basically going to see through the Mercy story arc a lot of that actually happening, which is going to be fun. One of my favorite things about Mercy story arc is also it's going to tell multiple stories about multiple characters, including Harper and Tanya, which you see them and you kind of see some hints of their whole story in the original arc of Sunstone. But through Mercy, you're actually going to properly see it. You're going to see it come off to the full fruition. You're going to see their wedding and everything, and you're going to see some problems that they've had. So it's like this is one of those things. I've lost quite a few people for a while after Sunstone 5 ended, because they were like, well, that's it, that's the end, right? Then I'm like, no, it's not. Doing more. They're like, oh, more Ali and Lisa. I'm like, no, we're moving forward. Their kind of story right now, for now, is done. This one's going to be about Alan and Anne, but it's also going to then plug back into Alan and Lisa, expand on it. It's going to show you the prequel and the sequel of it. So when you start Mercy, you actually find out about the whole past of Ali and Alan in the college, and that whole fucking series of events is goddamn hilarious. But then later on, as Mercy continues, you see history of Ali with the club. So you kind of fill out those gaps of the story. But then at some point, you see that Ali started, interacting online with this girl, with this writer chick, right? And then moves on forward. Mercy moves on, but also does Sunstone. So you find out what it's like for Alan and Lisa as a couple. You find out that Lisa is starting to write a novel, which happens to be Letters to the Vampire Queen, which I had to figure out what the plot is for that. And when I figured out what the plot is for that, I'm like, I might just write that novel. What I'm saying is it's a layered comic.
It's like the way you're describing it there, it reminds me of Pulp Fiction or something, where you get a big chunk of these characters, and then we move on to some more, but then we get a look back in time at the previous characters. That is such an ingenious way of building your own kinky bondage universe. It's
fun because at the end of the day, you're harshly reminded that it's not about kinkiness or about bondage. It's about kinksters, as in it is a slice of life. The way I approach Sunstone is it's a mature story about immature people, right? And that's what it really is. It is about people. It's about these idiots kind of figuring out life and their kinks at the same time,
Well, now I'm all excited to read the next 15 volumes, and by that point, it might be next year before you finish all those.
Year.
So with this tremendous workload that you're shouldering yourself, do you ever find any time to take in other media, whether it's like listening to a podcast, listening to a YouTube show?
So
watching
YouTube shows and
movies?
podcasts, those are kind of my consistent thing, because while I'm writing, I can't listen to much of that stuff. I usually just put some non-vocal music, something that's just melody.
Yeah.
But when I'm actually drawing, I have to have somebody jabbering in the background, like just a really just an endless just stream of thought of people just jabbering nonsense. So I watch a lot of your show, and
got our number.
How are they going to pronounce my name this time?
No, we're rolling that dice.
How about in the comic medium? I imagine there is not a lot of time for you to sit down and read comics, but are there any creators that you kind of keep an eye on?
For me, like it's my wife's stuff, because not only because I'm married to her, but because I genuinely love her stuff.
Right.
Like she also writes slice of life and fantasy and romance and stuff like that, and I happen to adore those genres. It's Mirka Andolfo stuff, and generally Matt Hawkins when he's writing stuff that's kind of in continuity with Sunstone. So stuff like Swing and his other romance book Sugar, I read those.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, it's just kind of whenever I get the time to pick something up. Like recently, I heard a lot about Something is Killing the Children, right? So I bought the books, and I've read the whole 5 pages of volume 1. I'm sure I'm gonna continue it sometimes, because like it's not even whether or not the book is interesting, because like those 5 pages, I'm like, ooh, what's this? Ooh. But you just immediately like, well, the toilet breaks over, I gotta fucking go back to work. You know what I mean? It's like you're just like, you just don't have the time for anything. Like, funniest thing is when people ask me, it's like, okay, have you seen Arcane? I'm like, 1 episode. And it's great.
Yep. Oh man, I think we all kind of face those same things. Definitely not to your extent, but we're constantly in the same boat of like, oh, I've heard this is good. I've heard this is good, but I love this creator's work. I really want to keep up to speed on them. But like, we read some stuff for the show, and then we all work full time and have kids and a bunch of obligations. So it's very hard to stay up to speed on like the current comic scene. You kind of like peripherally absorb it, but
yeah, I have hoarded so many comics here, and I have read, I think, maybe 5% of them.
Hey, that sounds like you guys.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's our collection showing here.
I got those same Hellboy collections. I think I've read like first half of the first book, like the big hardcover. Yeah, I'm just like, all right, good. I'm gonna read it eventually. Those hardcovers. Yep. They're pretty.
That first half looks awesome.
Awesome. It's amazing. My God, this fella Rasputin, I think he's up to no good.
I've got a bad feeling about him. That's going to be on my tombstone. It's going to be, I'll read it eventually. It looks good. I'll read it eventually.
It's one of the big problems in general when you're trying to really create anything. It's like, it's like a contest of who gets to jiggle their keys hardest, right? To a very overstimulated audience cases. Like, because it's like it is that, because it's like, take any genre, right? Like this is why I always say that it's lunacy even trying to make new superheroes. It's like, oh, well, look, I made this man or that woman, because it's like there's just so many of them. Like how big is the set of keys that you're jingling right here? Because best of luck, really.
Oh man, you may have a future with that IP right there, though. This man and that woman. There's something about that. It's just catchy enough.
Generic lad.
Yeah. In about a month, we're going to be doing a big Batman special. Even though you're not a huge superhero fan, do you have any recommended Batman run or a favorite run of the character?
I don't think I've ever read a Batman run in my life, so no.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, my knowledge of Batman comes down to episodes of the cartoons that I've seen, because we didn't have it in Croatia. And by the time I could get it, it was literally, this is one of those big problems with American superhero comics. It's like, where the fuck do you start?
Well, that is inspiring that you're not a Batman fan and have read very little Batman, but yet you went on and made one of the most popular best-selling Batman-adjacent books.
Even a broken hour,
Oh, I had a question about your actual physical creative stuff. Like, what do you use to draw?
A tablet and the Photoshop. Like, no, seriously, I've abandoned physically drawn comics just because it's like, if I'm working on American comics, I have to actually import American format papers because Europe doesn't do the same format as America does. We have A3, A2, so we have A formats, right? So it's a pain in the ass to actually get those. It's an even bigger pain in the ass to get proper like nibs and proper, you know, inks and stuff. So I'm like, I could struggle with all that, and hear me out, click new file, click.
Yeah. Well, more or less, do you have like a certain tablet that you like? Is it like Wacom or whatever it is?
Currently using a Cintiq. It's okay. It's all okay. Listen, they're all fine. Like, if you want to draw, honestly, the healthiest one to do, you get yourself a big old screen, you mount it on the wall, get yourself one of those tablets without a screen on it, and you draw on that. And here's why. When you're working on the screen tablets, you're constantly fucking hunching down. You get that good shrimp posture, you know? But if you got one of those without screen, you're not hunching down. You're looking up, especially if you mount it up. And then your posture is fine. You got yourself no stress. You're just chilling. And plus, they're cheaper. Win, win, win. And you live longer.
Now the recliner picture really comes into
now you're putting it all together.
8-10 hours a day just kicking back, drawing.
Oh yeah.
I find myself just talking to you more and more. I find myself just more fascinated with Croatia in general. What's your favorite?
You would be the first person.
I just like that. It's just Europe and stuff is interesting. What's your favorite Croatian food?
What's my favorite Croatian food? That would be fish paprikaš. That would be something like it's a river fish stew, right? And in theory, like, you hear the concept and you see it for the first time, and you're just like, I don't know about this. But it's like it's a pot of lies, because that thing is the most delicious thing ever, and everybody agrees when they actually try it. But what you do is you take all the river fish after it's cooked, like, take it all out. You don't need that. You just need the broth. Take the broth, you take yourself some good noodles, and just sweat it out, because it's really spicy.
Did you call it a pot of lies?
It is a pot of lies. Linda, when she saw it for the first time, you just saw her face just like sus. Just like, I don't know about this one.
Oh my God.
And then she tries it later on. She's visiting at that point, like, we're still dating. I'm like, where's Linda? She's not here. Like, she's somewhere in the apartment. I'm like, where is she? Anyways, like, she'll go to the bathroom. I go, and she's in the kitchen. She's taking like that like pot, like ladle, right? She's taking just a ladle of it without the noodles in it. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, dude. I'm like, I know.
Save some for the rest of us, Linda.
Yeah.
Oh, Linda is saving nothing for anybody when it comes to fish stew. That thing is.
Growing up in Croatia and living in Croatia, did you ever live in the United States, or
Never? No.
So is it hard to write all of your comics, which are exclusively in the United States? I mean, not hard, but like, what made you decide to set it there as opposed to like somewhere in Europe? Other than sales, probably. I imagine a lot of sales readers wouldn't read a European comic.
I don't know. Listen, most of my comics, I never even specify where the fuck it's happening. And when it's New York, I just slap on a goddamn familiar bridge or the Statue of Liberty. I'm just like, we're good. If not, we're somewhere in the suburbs. Because that's the thing. Like, most of the times, you don't need specifics. You just need the mood, and you'll sell it to a person. Because really, this is why when people go like, "Oh, this is happening in Chicago," no, it's not. It's in Toronto, you bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you and Linda meet? If you're okay sharing that, you don't have to. It's a personal question, but seeing as you seem like fairly open.
I have shared that romantic story many a times.
It was over a nice river fish paprikash.
No. It was far more romantic. Linda is dying right now, by the way, because she knows what's about to happen. We went to the same school for like theater stage production. I don't know how to even translate it. Point is, we went to the same school. For art and design, let's say, if you squint and tilt your head and like stand on your head, it was all right. In that school, me and my best friend, we were the dinosaur guys. So Linda saw me in the hallway and proceeded to headbutt me. And I'm like, what?
Like a Paracephalosaurus, right?
Pachycephalosaurus, exactly. My God, this man of culture right here.
I know dinosaurs.
and I'm like, what the fuck? She's like, I'm a Pachycephalosaurus. I'm like,
it's meant to be.
Well done. And we could hear the angels sing. No, seriously, we were complete idiots. Like we were the I was the guy who was into dinosaurs when everybody was trying to score chicks. She was the girl who was into video games when everybody was trying to date. We were just meant for each other.
Oh. When are dinosaurs going to work their way into Sunstone?
Not a day goes by when I don't regret at least some type of time travel in that story.
Is there any idea that you may have come across or thought up and deemed it inappropriate for one of your books?
No, just not good enough. That's really, those are the only ones that I've discarded.
Or all those ideas with all those erect penises where you're like, I don't know how to show it to anybody. These editors hate all these erect penises.
Please, I have done wonders with erect penises in Volumes of Mercy. I have done things to erect penises that people only dream doing to erect penises. One of them turns into a lightsaber, for fuck's sakes. Seriously, if you haven't read the Mercy arc, you're missing out on all the wonders one can do with an erect penis. That's all I'm saying.
I would love to be in the room where you throw your drawings on the table and the editor's like, please have mercy.
And I'm like, and now you know where the name came from. Comics are fun.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So if you weren't making comics nonstop at all hours of the day, what would you be doing?
Probably, I don't know. Yeah, I would probably just design for video games. I still do that when I feel like it. I'm probably gonna do something for a certain video game project very soon. But that's just kind of like, really, for me, it's a palate cleanser at this point. Like, it's like, oh, let me just do something really different just to kind of get out of it, to clear my mind and go back into this. Because truth is, I am a storyteller. Like, and hell, even me saying that I would design for video games, even that's a lie. I would probably just write novels.
Yeah.
Like that's my obsession. My obsession isn't making works of art. My obsession is telling stories. This is why my comics are generally have an unfinished, unpolished look to them, because my goal isn't to do my best to show everybody just how good I can draw something. They know how good I can make it when I actually make it. Like, people often go like, wait, shit, what you can do that? I'm like, yeah, I just don't need to do that, because I'm trying to tell you a story. I'm not trying to impress you with, like, I'm not trying to tell you I'm an artist. I'm trying to tell you a story, right? Mm-hmm. And that's my obsession, really. I mean, that's why when I had to figure out what novel a character is writing in the book, and then I'm like, okay, so she's gonna have to actually talk about the progress of the novel as the story progresses, because I'm like, listen, these are people with lives, so I have to figure out the lives, right? And so Lisa starts writing a vampire novel after having endless years of just constantly self-loathing for the whole concept of herself writing a vampire novel, because she feels it's trendy. She feels it's that unhealthy attitude that people get about an idea, right? Because it's like, oh, people are shitting on it online or something like that, and they will shit on it online until somebody does it right. And that's the thing. So she finally kind of wages her own personal war with it and starts writing the novel. And I'm like, okay, so it has to be a really good idea for a novel, right? So I'm like, let me just real quick think of a real good idea for a novel. And I'm like, shit, that's a really good idea for a novel.
I've done it. So
and my perfectionism.
Do you have a literature background too?
No, I just read about 7,000 books in college and high school. So I was just like, yeah, I think I got this.
Okay, so you're a big reader, because a lot of times, if someone is a big creator, they obviously wouldn't have a ton of time to just take in and consume all these other works too.
During high school and college, I would read about 7 to 10 books a week.
Oh, wow.
I was devouring books. Like I've gotten to the point where I could, I've developed like that habit of speed reading, where you could just take entire paragraph, just kind of look at it and move on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I was absorbing books at that point. Like it was actually fucking ridiculous. So now it's just like, I'm like, I get how this works. I get the storytelling. I get the importance of teams. So that was actually one of the most important things that I learned from reading books, was the importance of setting up a good theme through a book, right? Setting up a thing that would be there, like a beating, like a subtle beat of a heart, right? Where you're like, you're not really aware of it, but it's there, just giving a rhythm to everything. You're just like, all right, that's happened. But there's something constantly kind of, pulling your attention to that beat. And then at the end, you realize that it's been there all along, right? And you're like, holy shit, it all has a payoff to this one big goddamn cardiac arrest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if I ever completely put it together until you explain that, but there is definitely a vibe that I get from reading your works, that it feels like it was written by an author. And I don't mean that as a slight against other comic book writers, but there's a very different style in writing for a comic book and writing a novel. And I feel like yours kind of bridges that, where it's wordier than most comic books are.
I this is what I always say when people, ask me about that. So, because it's like my books are wordy. I'm like, my characters have stuff to say. My characters lead rich external and internal lives. And it's because I really am a graphic novelist, as in I will show you the visual style, but you're getting the novel. I'm just like, sorry. One goes with the other. You're kind of stuck with this.
What were some of your favorite authors? I mean, if you were devouring and deflowering 7 to 10 books a week, I'm sure there's plenty. But are there a Stephen King or an Anne Rice?
There was King, there was Rice, there was Agatha Christie, there was Tolkien, of course, there was Burroughs with all of the Tarzan books, and that. They didn't even know they had Tarzan books in the library, because I was so desperately starved for books that I started pulling out books and realized there was a stack of books behind the books where they stacked old books that they were supposed to throw away. And I'm like, there's an entire collection of Tarzan. Well, guess what?
There was an entire collection.
Yeah, because they were like, they had a limit of taking out 3 books a week. I had a limit of taking out basically as many books as I wanted every day, because they were like, he's coming back.
yeah, we know where he lives.
They did. I was obsessed with stories in general. That was like one of the things when I was in elementary school. Even then, I was obsessed with trying to write stories, to the point where there was this child author, a very famous one in our country. They came to our school, and my teacher back then was like, "Here, you gotta read his, short story that he wrote." And this author basically literally pulled the goddamn brake on the whole fucking session. There was like, you need to call his parents right now, where she actually told my mom and dad, listen, this kid is born to be a writer. You gotta encourage him. And my mom and dad are like, this kid is difficult to figure out, because this kid so here's the thing. I had, back in the day, we lived in the age of communist Yugoslavia. It wasn't optimal. It was kind of one of those, at that point, failing systems. So one of the things that they didn't know how to deal with was gifted children. And at that time, basically, my IQ was kind of off the charts. They wanted to push me forward 2 years. My mom and dad were very much against that, because then I would have to deal with older kids bullying me, right? So all of a sudden you get the runt of the class, and it's just like, and kids back then were just, it was the 80s, bullying laws were not in effect. So
this kid thinks he's smarter than us.
I mean, like I passively taught myself English because I wanted to listen to cartoons as in elementary school. I wanted to listen to US cartoons on my TV while I was playing with my Masters of the Universe toys, you know. and here's the funny part: Linda did the same.
Linda,
very good.
So yeah, storytelling was always kind of. I was kind of destined for that in one way or another. Turns out I was like, okay, why one way or another? Why not one way and another?
Right. So do you see, I mean, you're steeped in comics right now. Do you see maybe just deciding in 5 years, like, all right, I think I'm good on comics, and then going on to another endeavor? I mean, there's plenty of avenues to tell stories. Have you thought about doing film?
I literally paced it all out. I have about 20 more years of comics in me, and then I retire to the point where I'm going to be making 1 or 2 comics at a time.
Mm-hmm.
That's my retirement.
Wait a minute. You said retire, right? And then you're also going to be making more. Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah, I mean, listen. What I do is I draw until I get tired of drawing it. Then I draw some more to take a break from all the drawing. This is the way this works.
Right.
Okay.
So, is there anything else coming up down the pipeline that you don't already have established here with these 5 books? Any ideas rumbling around? And you don't have to. I have too many ideas. I have too many ideas, and when those start crawling up in my mind, I get drunk so that I stop them. Because I don't need them right now. I'm gonna plug in those ideas. No, I'm kidding. The thing is, like, I have ideas; they're jotted down. But like, to me, it comes down to this: an idea is not enough. The story must have a purpose, and if a story has a very clear purpose, very concise, not just beginning, and a middle, and an ending, but a reason to exist, those stories get made. Like. Such is the case for current stories. You know, I have my Sunstone. I have my fine print. Fine print is gonna blow people's minds. Like, I'm not even kidding. People can't even begin to guess what fine print is actually about. And like, it's not about just the sexy stuff. Like, this is this one's gonna hurt. Then we have The Queen and the Woodborn, which is fairy tale, a dark Slavic folklore fairy tale romance. And I mean a fairy tale. Like, this was one of those things that I always wanted to do ever since I was a kid. I wanted to make a fairy tale. A fairy tale and fantasy, like, to me, differ greatly in the scope of them and in kind of the moralistic purpose of them, you know. Like, fairy tales come with a stronger point to them, is what I mean. And then I have Achilles Shield Maiden, which is my love letter to the mecha genre, which I loved since I was a kid. And I have Death Vigil, of course, which has been running, you know, since the time when Sunstone was still a webcomic, and right now I'm doing the second volume. Only the second volume? So you must have taken a very long break between volume 1 and 2 of Death Vigil.
Yeah, Death Vigil was one of those books where I learned the hard way that the comic book industry wasn't really working for me as a concept. Because the problem with comic industry is the whole process of selling your books, right? Is, as a company, you're selling them to the comic book stores, which generally have to bet on winners and losers. As to who gets the spot on the shelf, because they have to put in their own money and bet on the option that they're going to sell those books. You know, those books weren't returnable, so naturally, comic book stores weren't really all that eager to order a bunch of books from an absolute no-name like me. Back then, I was a no-name, which hilarious anecdote that I'll tell you later. Something that happened with Harleen, but I was a no-name, right? And we sold a decent amount of volume 1. A lot of stores weren't gonna pick up volume 1 at all. Book 1, I mean, I'm sorry, not book, issue 1. It's just the floppies, right? And at that point, I've at least learned the fact that I had to tell my readers to go to the comic book stores and actually pre-order the books, put them on the pull list, right? I got an alarming amount of people who came to me and just told me, like, the stores weren't gonna order them for them because they're just not gonna order that book, because it's like it's gonna come in trade anyway. So it's like, you know, and that absolutely decimated the sales for the issue 2, for issue 3. And the funny part was, at the time, Death Vigil and Saga were coming out at the same time, and they both had the same Metacritic score of all the reviews out there, and both had a massive amount of reviews, but Death Vigil was just doomed to failure from the get-go. So by the time the volume 1 arc finished, and everybody was like, oh my god, this book is amazing. Yeah, well, it turns out we couldn't sell them because stores weren't picking them up. And again, I'm not blaming them, but I've learned a harsh lesson from that. This is why when Sunstone Volume 1 was coming out, we were publishing a graphic novel, and I had to turn to the more, safe choice. I basically funneled all of my readers back then to Amazon. I didn't want to. I don't think Bezos needed more money, but it was the only way for the book to succeed, and the book exceeded expectations immensely. Like, Sunstone at this point has been translated to 27 languages in 57 countries.
Cool.
That's so awesome.
And funny thing is, like, when was the last time you've seen it mentioned on any comic sites or anything?
Oh, I know.
I am a complete nobody in the industry, but the funny thing is, I am ridiculously successful.
as you sit in your recliner with your bags of money.
The irony is just
wearing the Predator mask. Oh, well, I'm like, that makes me so happy to hear that, for one, because I love what I've read of yours, and I want you to keep doing it. And you meet people that love what they're doing and they don't succeed on it, and they might not, or they might even work for some of the big companies.
I wouldn't succeed if I wasn't very open to learning from my mistakes and all of this stuff, learning the business, because the problem with comic industry is, like, you actually have to learn the business if you want any chance of success. Like, if one thing doesn't work, you can't just give up on it. You kind of have to constantly flip one solution at a time. Just keep trying. And another thing is, like, you got to be obnoxious about advertising your own stuff, because truth is, nobody else will do it for you. Hell, even those who can, at some point, like, there were times where it's like, nobody will mention your work, nobody will do anything. But at the same time, you built something of your own on the side, and all of a sudden, you're doing better than any website could have provided you. You're doing better with your own self-promotion than anybody could have done it for you. Like right now, I came out with Fine Print, and Fine Print was such a cursed book to push out. First, we had to swap the printer because there were printer issues just before. Like, the book was gonna come out on time perfectly, except there were printer issues. They had to move the entire production to, I think, Korea or somewhere. I don't know. That added like three more weeks past the deadline. And I was like, goddamn, right? Like, that's frustrating. So the books come in. And then happens the Diamond ransomware hack that happened for them, where they lost all of their data, so all of the orders got fucked, and they couldn't push them. So they suffered massive delays on their books, including my book. So instead of my book coming out end of November, there's still fucking Amazon sites that haven't gotten around to delivering it in Europe at all. Like, it's just. It was a shit show.
God.
It was a shit show. But here's the real kicker: it's still on Amazon, right there on like top 10 image best-selling graphic novels. It's there consistently in top 10 romance graphic novels. It's just constantly going because I put my work out there, and because I relentlessly let people know that yes, it is out there. It's ready. You can read it. Hell, I gave it away for free.
See that? Yeah, on your Patreon, you have all the Sunstone on there, right? In PDF?
Yeah. I also like, the funny thing is, like, people just keep underestimating when I tell them the Sunstone is a webcomic first, because it's literally for free on DeviantArt first. Not just on DeviantArt, on every site that has picked it up and stole it from my DeviantArt and shared it everywhere. And people are like, oh my God, they're stealing your stuff. I'm like, so?
Yeah, like it's already free.
It's like, you don't get how this works. Sunstone is actually free, which is why it's making me a lot of money.
So,
all kidding aside, Sunstone is a proof of concept that people will support a thing that they genuinely appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we live in the age of crowdfunding. People have proven that over and over again. So why people are very kind of reluctant on trying out those models is always beyond me. But these are very successful models in comics. Like, you can make an extreme success by just putting your work out there, because the problem is when you're trying to charge somebody based on a cover and 2 lines of text, that's a risk for people. But if you give them something from the get-go and like, here, see if you like it, and they like it, first of all, that's a testimony to your own quality as a creator, and second of all, those people that like it, they've read it for free and bought it still, they'll be back for more because they care. And you know what? Those are the happiest customers. Those are the customers I prefer having.
How long have you been running your Patreon service?
I think about 2 years now. For the longest time, I couldn't even open it because it was very hard to figure out how to taxate that, and I wasn't gonna fuck around and find out. You know, when it comes to that, like I'm too busy to go to jail. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and the problem is
how much work you could get done uninterrupted there.
True. That is a fair point. We'll consider a life of crime. No, but the thing is, like, it took a while because it's like. Tax system here is convoluted, and you kind of have to know how to figure it out. And then in the end, we figured it out. It's like, oh, for fuck's sakes, I was just supposed to taxate it as author's work, and that's it, you know. So we figured that out, and I launched that Patreon. Like, I had it launched, but I didn't have the payments active there. So people just kept joining. I'm like, I'm not charging you until we start. I will warn you all like a few months before launching, just so that you know that I'm not slapping your wallets all of a sudden. You're like, hey, where my $5 go, you know? So by that time, I've gathered a lot of people on it. And when I started, just people kept pouring in because word of mouth went out because I was providing a lot of content on a monthly basis. And I'm consistently providing a lot of content on a monthly basis. I take my Patreon very seriously. Hell, like I said, I've had a fever for the last 4 days, but I still deliver my comic. And I was like, listen, I don't fuck around with that.
You've been responding to me, of all people, on Patreon, and I'm like, isn't there anything else you should be doing?
You're not special, buddy. I respond to everybody.
I know that. I hear that from my wife every night. When someone is considering supporting a creator that they believe in, I mean, I can't think of a better example than someone like yourself here that is just working your ass off all the time, but not to like get rich. It's because you have stories to tell. You want to share what you have inside you.
So funny thing for me is, like, I've had offers, right? I've had offers for like movie rights for this and that and stuff like that. But the thing is, like, that was never my end game. My end game is to make comics. Like people have figured that out about me at this point. I am no bullshit. I am that weirdo. Like, I am the weirdo who's like, just bugger off. Let me fucking do my comics. I want to tell my story. Like, I am, if you ever read the manga Bakuman, I am Nizuma Eiji. I am that moron who's just endlessly drawing, right? Like, it's Bakuman is basically it's a manga about people making comics, right? They're making mangas, and there's one guy there who's just beyond obsessive about it. He's just like, that is literally the purpose of his life, you know, to tell the stories, you know. And that's me. Like, I am genuinely that guy. Like, at some point, I'm gonna be very rich, and I'm not even gonna notice it. Like, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, okay, cool. I don't know. I'm gonna buy a new monitor now. Fuck off.
Yeah. When you mentioned retiring, I was like, "Good luck retiring. You're not gonna fucking retire. You're not gonna."
What I mean by retiring is just reducing my workload from 5 comics a month to, 2.
4 comics a month.
No, come on, 2. Let's be reasonable.
Okay, I have to chime in here. When you mentioned people were coming to you with movie rights, elaborate on that. Was there ever a potential like Sunstone movie pitch that someone came to you with?
Yes, multiple ones. They usually come with the caveat of, so here's how we envision it, and generally what follows after that is nothing what I did. And then I'm like, So here's how I envision this. Get the fuck away from me. Listen, I would rather not have it done than just do that shit. Like, here's the only way I can ever imagine Sunstone being done is either it's a mature fucking viewers Scott Pilgrim, as in fucking just weird and funny, or a cartoon.
Okay.
That's all. But even there, I would be like, listen, I am gonna be that bitch. I'm gonna come there and I'm gonna hover over your shoulder while I'm drawing a comic. Oh yeah, I'm gonna be drawing a comic in one hand and just kind of eyeballing you with one of my eyes. Are you fucking it up? Are you winning, son? Listen, at that point, I'm just gonna have myself a mobile recliner there, just like I'm gonna be like Professor Rex. Yeah, I'm just gonna go in. Doing a good job there.
Yeah. You know, I completely respect that decision, but I feel like in the age that we're in now, where streaming has made it so easy to get content out there, and people
it's so easy to fuck it up too.
Right, exactly. They're not all winners, but there is more options out there where, like, maybe someone could do a really cool, like, mature Sunstone series, you know?
Sure, but so far my options were generally, hey, so we were thinking we're going to remove all the narration out of it because that doesn't really go well in shows or movies. I'm like, I know, not a lot of winners had that. Just Malcolm in the Middle, How I Met Your Mother, what's his name? Sopranos, Sex and the City, Scrubs, all those failures. But not a lot of successful ones.
Oh, I'm glad you called out Scrubs. I'm a huge Scrubs fan.
Oh, did I?
You know it wouldn't work, but I still I want to see what it would have been.
There's a possibility. There's a possibility of it working.
Yeah,
but it has to be Sunstone.
Yep.
That's the main rule for me. Like, it has to remain Sunstone. Like, you can cut stuff out, of course. It's an adaptation, right? You're gonna have to change things to flow. Like, you can't pull off the flowery scene of her picking petals. Like, you can do it if you take a Scott Pilgrim approach as I forgot what the phrase was, like non-diegetical or whatever. There was that thing where you kind of do kind of a non-linear storytelling thing where you can have like symbolical images, symbolical scenes happening, and you understand that that's not really happening. There was a phrase for that, right, in movies, but I forgot what the phrase was because I'm sick and I need more coffee. Point is, you can pull it off, right?
Yeah.
If you try it, you can do the Scott Pilgrim route and embrace the comic roots of a comic and make something that people will appreciate. But generally, what I was getting from Sunstone pitches were basically this. So we heard it was 50 Shades of Grey, but done well. And I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
And this is coming from somebody who's always saying, like, I have absolutely nothing against 50 Shades of Grey. Don't come at me with that shit. 50 Shades of Grey was nothing but a bit of escapist fiction smut. It's not the author's fault or the book's fault that it got popular. That's on all of you.
Yeah. It is, I think, probably the perfect example of Hollywood constantly learning the wrong lesson in situations like that. They're like, oh yeah, people just want really steamy, kinky romance stuff.
Like, that's the thing is, Sunstone is a 20-volume series. It's gonna be when it's done, right?
Yeah.
How the fuck are you gonna do that? It's like, oh, we're just gonna do the first 5 volumes. It's like, you're not really capturing the beauty of the thing, right? Because the thing is, like, first arc was fun, and then it got too great by the finale because it landed its emotional beat. It landed its themes. All of the little repetitions, all the little things kind of like started being like a puzzle pieces that all of a sudden by the end formed a great picture, right? Then comes Mercy Arc, and Mercy Arc, people have started already noticing that Mercy Arc is going to be on a whole next level of storytelling. Like, it is going to be vastly superior to the first arc. And then Jasper Arc is going to shit on all of that altogether. Like, it's gonna actually be like just, you know, ridiculously good. Like, here's the thing, I'm not a fan of my own work or my own writing, but I am very objective to skill gaps between it. Like, I can appreciate where I have improved drastically, and just on the sheer storytelling level, the jumps in quality between these arcs are going to be massive, you know. And so it's like, I don't think Sunstone is a good thing to be adapted.
Yeah.
Death Vigil, yes. Killer Shield Maidens, fuck yes. Queen of the Woodborn, definitely. Fine print, difficult.
Well, that is a respectable stance to have, especially when you literally do have people coming to you and pitching this and offering you money for it. And you take the stance of being like, no, that's not what I see this as.
You took the Alan Moore route.
I've said this before. Like, I don't need more money. I'm doing fine. Like, I don't need the quick payout for something that, like, here's the thing. They could make a bad thing, right, and push it out, and it's gonna increase the sales of my books for like 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I get for it forever, because there is no second chances. Like, nobody's gonna be like 10 years from then and say, so we saw this bad attempt at Sunstone, but let's do the good one now.
Yeah.
I'm there like in my 70s, like, oh, let's do it. This is the one. I respect that some people very much, go for those things. For me, that was never the end game. My end game is having my 20 volumes of Sunstone on the shelf and just staring at it and going like, now I can die.
After I get all of this other stuff written and drawn.
Exactly.
I can't think of a better way to kind of wrap this up than by just driving home that point of like, what an admirable way to look at your work, where it's not about the money or the payout or anything. It's just about telling the story that you want to tell by yourself without any interference. And that's beautiful.
It's one of those things when you actually live the dream, like, just don't look further. Like, you're fine. The dream's here. Okay. Enjoy it. Like, I literally get to do whatever the fuck I want. Like, this is the beauty of this whole thing. Like, what the hell do I need after that? I'm just like, this is brilliant. This is great. I don't need, like, people say it can get better. I don't need better. I am happy. Like, beyond that level is stress levels of better. Okay. Like, that's better with investment, better with additional steps. I don't need additional steps. I make comics for a living. I'm out of shape as it is.
Well, screw you for being happy.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
No further questions.
I might draw in a club.
In a cage.
It's just like, I wandered into the wrong club. Let me out. It's like, that's not the safe word.
Or I accidentally swallow and choke on the choker.
I thought it was a jawbreaker. I thought it might be a cake. These days, everything's a cake.
Everything's a cake. Well,
I had a magnificent time tonight. I'm gonna tell you
this was great.
This is wonderful. Is there anything?
You guys are awesome.
Oh, well, I feel like so honored to just. And like, I'm not just sitting here sucking your dick or anything and saying like, "Oh my God, look at this guy." But like,
I know. My pants are on.
Yes, you're in the recliner, but
in the recliner.
But just, I mean, the fact that you took 2 hours out of your night at 3 a.m. when you're feeling miserable and chatting with just, a couple of guys that just want to BS with you because we like your work. That's amazing.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here, okay? I live in a very non-nerdy country. Any fucking chance I get to actually talk with some comic nerds and like just actual dorks, you know what I mean? Like, people who love this shit.
Well,
this is my vacation.
Right on.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we kind of wrap this up? Any final words or final thoughts?
Nothing really. I've just basically, I think we covered everything. I just had a blast.
The whole life.
Well, let's not go that far. Come on, I'm expecting at least 20 more years. Yeah.
That's right. Just to wrap up this series.
Yeah, exactly.
If you would be up for it at some point, maybe whenever the next volume of Mercy publishes, maybe we could jump on another call and chat or
whenever you want
something around that. I think that would be really fun. Catch up again.
Sure thing. Whenever you want to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been an honor to chat with you, to hear about this, and you are truly an inspiration, a creative inspiration. It makes me want to
it's been
go up there.
Meanwhile, people on my streams are like, this asshole streams every day, just kind of gibbering nonsense, fucking listening to heavy metal.
It was a lot of fun. We really thank you for your time and all of the amazing content that you've put out there. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, it was nice talking with you, Stephen Sidekick. It was.
Excuse me, it's Schnitzel Sidekick.
Oh,
how can you not learn that? Why do I bother?
Big thanks once again to Stjepan Sejic and his wife Linda for taking time out of their night to chat with us. We enjoyed ourselves immensely, and I think we're all still in awe of the creative output radiating from this power couple. If you're not already a supporter of their work, you can do so by visiting their Patreon, which, as you heard on this episode, they pretty much post all of their comics as they are completed weekly, as well as access to an exclusive Discord if you join Linda's Patreon, both of which are linked below in the description. And if you have any support left in your body, you can always toss a little our way at Patreon/Imperius Rex, which gets you exclusive access to early episodes, a slew of rewards ranging from stickers, bookmarks, and bottle openers, and access to our very own Discord, populated by a multitude of wonderful people just like yourself. Unless you're a terrible person with a heart of coal, but even so, I think we can win you over. So thanks for listening, watching, or whatever you're doing while this is playing in the background, and tune in next time for our regularly scheduled content. That's a tough word to say, regularly. A lot of syllables? Regularly. Yeah, that's the right term. What a roller coaster. Bye.